You're tuned into 9 to 5 Work Rebels with your host, Ebony Gale. This series is sponsored by the PRCA's Race and Ethnicity Equity Board. To learn more about REEB and its mentoring scheme, visit prca.org.uk/REEB.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gems in Comms series special, brought to you by 9 to 5 Work Rebels. And I am your host, Ebony Gale. Today, I am super excited to be speaking with Patricia Macauley, who is the founder and director at MMC, which is Multicultural Marketing Consultancy, about her journey in communications. Now, welcome, Patricia.
Hello, Ebony. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, this podcast is all about giving people of colour their flowers in the industry, essentially for carving out a piece of career for themselves, a piece of the pie, and you've done that. So I wanted to, give you a kudos first for doing that. So well done to you.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. So I always like to start off with, getting into a bit of your background. So can you start off by telling us about yourself and what it is you do, and also what attracted you to working in communications?
Okay, so I've been working in communications 20 plus years. And obviously now I'm running my own agency, but that's not where I started. The agency that I run, MMC, is very much kind of focused on social purpose campaigns. So it's about how we can make a difference in our society and particularly to our communities. So we are very much focused on reaching and engaging multicultural communities about the things that matter to us, the things that kind of improve our lives, whether it's kind of job recruitment, whether it's around health, wealth, education, and that's what we focus on.
Brilliant. And can you tell me, what attracted you to the industry itself?
That's a really interesting one, because I think pretty much since I was young, I've always kind of been interested in kind of business studies, and I did kind of study business studies. And I remember doing a module in marketing and just finding it really fascinating. Just thinking, wow, this is really interesting, how you can kind of create behavior change, how you can kind of get into the psyche of people to influence their decision-making process. And that just struck a chord with me. And pretty much from there, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I pretty much decided at a kind of a young age, probably about 18, that this is what I wanted to do, much to the shock of my parents, who are kind of West African background, and they were like, marketing, what's that? So, there was definitely that little bit of a contention. Yeah, there was. It was a family issue, I have to say.
I can imagine. You're not going down the doctor or the lawyer route. It's like, what are you doing?
I'm not the doctor. I'm not the lawyer. My mum wanted me to be a lawyer. That was it. And I'm an only child. So it was like she had my career carved out for me. And she was kind of working in the legal field, and she was like, my daughter's going to be a lawyer. And much to her disappointment, I was like, sorry, that's not what I want to do. But they did come round, because the agreement was, I'm going to go to university. And the fact that I was going to university was sufficient for them. And then after that, they kind of saw the success and the building of a really kind of good career, and they embraced it. So I think we managed to turn them around.
Good. That's what we like to hear. And I will say that I identify with you in terms of taking the sort of marketing module, because I went to the Brit School, and I was at Brit doing dance, and I'd done a little bit of graphic design. And then I remember taking, because I was more into the kind of creative side of things, and I remember taking this module in marketing and just being fascinated by it and thinking, you know what, this is super interesting. It's me and another friend, and we both have ended up working in comms. And we were doing completely different, do you know what I mean, subjects. So yeah, I get it, where you get that little peak of interest. It's like, oh, this is super interesting, how you can influence. But I actually wanted to get into advertising at the time, because I was thinking, this is really cool. I was obsessed with the old school advert, You've Been Tangoed, back in the day. I used to think they were hilarious. So I was like, this is cool. You can do sort of things and get people's attention and try and get them to influence them. But then I looked into advertising a bit more, and I was like, they separate the creatives from the account stuff. So it's like, PR gives you that mix. So yeah, I can understand, why you went down the comms route and the way you got there. So moving a bit into your lived experience, right? I always ask all my guests this question, and I also share my answer. So my question is, when did you become aware of your ethnicity? And that's not to say that, you didn't realize you were a Black woman. It's more a case of, when it meets the outside world, maybe something happens that startles you. Or for me, it was going off secondary school, being 11 years old, first year, and hearing about these Chelsea Smilers that used to go around with razors and would cut you across your face.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Yes, I remember hearing about that. I remember heading into an area that was kind of known to be a bit contentious. I remember just thinking, oh my God, like, this is crazy. Obviously, I've seen movies, I've seen things, but this is where it kind of, collided with my personal world. So that was like a moment for me. Was there any particular moment for you?
To be honest, mine happened a lot earlier. So I do remember the Chelsea Smilers. But I think at that point, I was very kind of aware. And probably happened at primary school, I would say. I think I'm gonna have to say it. It's the hair.
Okay.
the kind of, I remember being teased because of my hair,
right,
and going home to my mum and just being really devastated, just like, really upset. Mum, they keep talking about I've got worms in my hair, and my mum would say like, no, you haven't. Your hair's beautiful. Really, just trying to reinvent. My hair was nice, and actually for quite a long period feeling like I didn't want my hair in plaits because I didn't want to be teased. And my mum had to do a lot of work with me, but that was kind of the moment of consciousness of I'm different. And it wasn't the fact that there wasn't a lot of other Black children in my school. There were, but I think for the Black girls, we really struggled. We really kind of came up against that kind of challenge of just having our hair different. And like in the classroom, when the white girls would get the brush out and they'll be brushing their hair, and quite similar to kind of like what we do with our dolls when we're growing up. And then our hair, we couldn't have that same thing, same
it's not your head in braids or whatever. It's not going to happen.
My hair was cane rolled. It was like I had cornrows, so there wasn't that taking the hair out and brushing it and making it and it being long. It wasn't that experience. That was kind of definitely the awakening to, okay, I'm different here, and feeling that experience of racism and being teased because of it. And I was telling someone actually quite recently that then kind of, it just kind of grew arms and legs. It started off with the hair. And then I remember that experience of in the playground, they had me in a circle, black, brown girl in the ring, and they were singing and dancing around me. It was awful.
I remember that song.
It was awful.
I didn't realise the quotation.
Brown girl in the ring, sha la la la. I was that brown girl, that ring, and it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good. So it happened quite early, and I guess the way that built, the way my parents kind of dealt with those situations helped me to build resilience, because by the time I got to secondary school, I was like, no nonsense, I'm not having it, and was very kind of confident in who I was as a Black girl growing up. And therefore it was like, I've got cane rolls, I've got plaits, I've got everything, and I look beautiful because that's what my family have told me. So it definitely kind of, for some people it can have an adverse effect, but for me, I would say kind of positive, and having that strong identity of who I am and being proud of who I was.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. It was great that you were able to go through that transition, because it's not as easy. It's not an easy road. And like you said, some people kind of recoil and don't necessarily want to embrace it, and you went down a route of embracing, and that's helpful because your parents will also help you to embrace. So that's good. That's good. But it's also devastating that we have to go through these experiences, and to think that there's children right now who are going through some experiences, because of
exactly. I mean, I have these, and because I've been through it, I've been proactive in talking to my children about it.
I bet you have.
So, particularly as they are the minority in their school, and I talk to them about, their culture, their background, their differences, and actually you are special, you are unique. You don't have to be the same as everybody else. And so they're very confident in themselves as a result of it.
Good. That's very, very important. Extremely. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask you if you've ever felt like your race, ethnicity has held you back in your career at all.
I would say no, and I think that's purposely because I've not allowed it to. I think that there have been challenges that have come my way where I could have just gone, like you said, recoiled because of it and said, well, okay, this is not for me, or because of what's going on, the experience I'm having. Because I think, let me wind back. I think the interesting thing about this country is that sometimes you can be experiencing racism and it's so covert. You can't really call it out. It's not that clear, and sometimes you don't want to kind of sound like you're being oversensitive, but there are things that happen to you, or I have experienced, that you think, gosh, had I been a different race, would I have encountered this? Would the experience be different? And I think genuinely sometimes I feel like, yes, I'm a woman, but being a Black woman on top of that has kind of, all I can say is that some of my experiences, I think, people just don't know how to handle or to kind of take you, and they've come with presumptions and assumptions about who you are and what you're like, and as a result I think that can affect how they relate to you. And as a result you either kind of rise from that, or you allow that to affect you and to kind of belittle you and make you feel like, well, you know what, actually the barrier or the bar's been set here, so therefore I'm just going to stay within my confinement. I've never allowed that to be my story, so I've already kind of risen above it.
And that's good. That's good to hear. That is good to hear. Would you say you've ever experienced or witnessed racism in the workplace? And if you have, how was it handled?
I personally have. It's been a long time because
you've had your own agency, right? Yeah, you're a consultancy. So you're like, that's like way back. Yes.
If I'm actually having to cast my mind right back to the days of kind of like when I used to be in the office. And I do remember, and I can't remember the exact expression, but I remember my line manager kind of calling me something. I said something to her, and her response was she called me a name, but the name had like definitely racist connotations, because I was like, whoa, you said that in the workplace. I can't remember what it is, so I don't want to kind of misrepresent what she had said. And that kind of feeling when somebody said something to you and then you think, am I being oversensitive here? Or is this kind of something that's not quite right and shouldn't be said in a workplace? And so I remember speaking to colleagues who weren't Black and saying, oh, this person said this. And they were like, oh, their immediate reaction was shock. And so that in itself told me that it was inappropriate what she had said. And how did I handle it? I didn't kind of let it slide. I actually took a moment. I didn't respond to or react to her in that moment. I sort of left it a few days, and I went back to her and I said, look, when we were having this conversation, when we were having a meeting, you said this about me. Actually, that was really offensive.
Well done.
And she was mortified. She was mortified because I don't think, sometimes people say things without necessarily thinking. I think that happens a lot. But also I don't think she expected me to kind of come back and address it. And I think that addressing it almost kind of created a sense of fear of how far is she going to take this. But for me, it was just like, let's just have this conversation. Let's draw a line after this and let this not happen again.
Yeah. I heard that. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you did speak up. Not everybody feels comfortable to speak up. So, there's no judgment. It's a case of, you do what feels right for you at the time. But I feel like that's great that you did do that. And I'm sure she was very wary of how she handled you moving forward.
Honestly, she was so, moving forward, we developed a really good relationship afterwards. But I believe that, people need to know where you stand so that they know how far that they can go with you. And I think from that, we had kind of a mutual respect She might have other personal views outside of work, but in the working environment, we were able to kind of work together successfully.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's brilliant. I was going to say, was there a time that you ever wished you'd spoken up about something, but you definitely spoke up in that situation, so that's fine.
I did speak up. I don't think there's ever been a situation where I've not spoken up. But obviously now, as a kind of running your own agency, I think there is another level of responsibility, is that you're making sure that that doesn't happen in your workplace, and it's not happening amongst your staff members. And if it is, that you're taking affirmative action to kind of address it.
I agree with you, absolutely. So as we covered the sort of speaking up situation, I want to move into code switching. So do you feel like, we, particularly, people of colour, can lead with our authentic voices in the workplace, or will we be forever code switching?
This is a really interesting one, because I'm kind of flicking between kind of when I was in the work environment versus now. I mean, obviously now I am my true authentic self. I'm not having to do any code switching. I can say what I want within reason, and feel comfortable with just being who I am. But when I was in the workplace, I was much younger then. I think maturity, as you grow older, you feel a lot more confident to kind of be your authentic self. But I remember in the workplace, I did feel the pressure of having to conform to do things I didn't necessarily feel that I wanted to do, particularly around, in comms, a lot of decisions are made outside of the office.
Absolutely.
In social circles, like going out drinking, going to the pub, doing all of that kind of stuff. And if you're not seen in those environments, does that help or hinder your career progression? And certainly when I was in the workplace, that did hinder your career progression if you weren't seen to be part of the group, or kind of at least they kind of could see that you had that social side to you. So I felt that when I was in the workplace, I was definitely doing a lot of that code switching, if I'm really honest. But I kind of saw it as like, okay, well, when I'm at work, this is who I am, and then when I'm with my friends, I can switch and be my authentic self. But now running an agency, very much about being my authentic self, but also creating an environment where I allow people to bring their whole self to work. And that's really important to me, because that's where you get the best of people. If people are having to kind of switch and kind of, try to fit in, and, that affects how they contribute as well. So I think there's definitely value in allowing people to kind of bring their whole self to work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that makes sense. And I completely get your perspective in terms of having to code switch in the workplace. And I felt like I did that. And I've been, independent for like over 10 years now. And so it's different, I can be myself, you can be yourself, but I still am aware of that, which is why I always like to ask that question, because everyone feels differently about this. So for you, when did you become aware of the colour bias within our industry? Like for me, I recognise how white the industry was when I started to do much more proactive, like voluntary work within the industry. So I used to go to a lot more of the events, so going to CIPR, no networking events, but also getting involved in the industry itself. I was the first Black woman appointed to the Women PR board. And I also noticed that it was just a sea of white women, and was just like, this is really interesting. Obviously, we know we've got the statistics that show that it's like, between 92 to 89% white, but it's just like it really affirmed it, because before that I was in my own bubble, working for different organizations, working for and engrossed within the teams. I was always in-house, then you'd have people around you within the organization that are of color, but actually then going to these events, for me it was more like, oh, okay, there is a real issue here.
Yeah, I think a similar sort of experience to you, but I think even kind of going to meetings, obviously kind of in comms work, there's a lot of, you're having a lot of meetings with clients, with interagency groups, and often quite large meetings where there's maybe kind of 15 to 20 of us in a room, and looking around the room and thinking, whoa, I'm the only Black person in here. Or kind of like, I'm the only person of colour in here. I think that's kind of progressed now, maybe 2 or 3 of us in a meeting. But I think it became very apparent. And then obviously kind of the next level is you start going to networking events. events and you don't see us unless it's an issue that's been talked about where race has been discussed, race disparity.
Yes, of course, DEI, race.
Yeah, exactly. We all appear and you're like, oh gosh, where do you work? Where have you been? Where all these faces come from? But day-to-day kind of client work and working with other agencies, obviously my agency is kind of multicultural, but going and working alongside other agencies, I'm like, whoa, I'm working with the client teams. It's been shocking at times to see kind of, and it's quite sad, Ebony, you've been in the industry for as long as I have, and I just kind of feel like, and sometimes this is why I avoid getting involved in some of the kind of conversations, because I feel like we've been having this conversation for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed. It feels like a cycle. We're just going back and having the same conversations again and again. And I'm all about, let's just do something. Let's make something happen rather than just keep talking about the same issue. It's kind of a little bit tiring.
Exhausting. It's exhausting.
Completely.
It's exhausting. So I completely get you, because I had to step back from a few things myself. I found it super exhausting ultimately. And it just feels like, like you said, the conversations we keep having, and sometimes it just feels a bit gaslighty at certain points, because it's a bit like, well, we've had all these conversations and I don't really see much. There's some movement, but there's still an issue with at CEO level. I've just seen a post on LinkedIn where someone's posted a picture of, she's quite
I saw that.
And it was a room full of CEOs, and I didn't see any people of colour in that room.
I saw that and I just thought, gosh, did that person put that up knowing, did they even notice that? Or did they just put it up and then suddenly they just got back with kind of comments? Because the first thing, before I'd even seen the comments, I was like, here are all the CEOs. I was like, there's no black or brown face in this room. What is going on in this age?
Right.
And it's not hard. And I am totally against this hard to reach. We're not hard to reach.
Nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. We're here. We're here if you want to find us.
You just need to look.
Exactly. You just need to look. You can even look at, I can't remember of UK Black Comms. Go and look on there. They've got a website, a list of like Black-owned agencies. So it's just like, come on now. There's ways to find us. But that picture, again, I just found it exhausting. I didn't even leave a comment. I saw a few of my colleagues have left comments on there. I've liked a couple of their comments. I'm just like, I find it very exhausting. And my contribution at the moment is doing this podcast, and so that we can get our voices out and, people can hear some of our stories in that way. But I'm just like, these pictures, how tone deaf do you have to be? And it's Black History Month. Really?
Exactly.
So I'm just like, wow. Okay. Interesting.
This series is sponsored by the PRCA's Race and Ethnicity Equity Board. To learn more about REEB and its mentoring scheme, visit prca.org.uk/REEB.
Anyway, moving on. I know you will be. I wanted to get your thoughts on the ethnicity pay gap. I know that the PRCA and the Race and Ethnicity Equity Board, they put out a report about this a couple of years ago. But obviously, we know there's a disparity. But what are your thoughts about that?
In some sense, it's good to come to light because I think most of us have had that suspicion that that's what's happening in the industry. But my focus is more about the so what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
So come to light now, what is going to change? How are we going to change this? How are we going to shift the dial? Because we can't continue. Again, it's not something new either. This has happened before. There's been of this been going on for years. And now that it's come to light, it's like, okay, what are agencies, what are organizations going to do about it? How are you going to make change?
I hear you.
So it's all about action.
I get you. I appreciate that. I do. What are your thoughts on allyship? What does it mean for you? What do you see as a good example of allyship?
In all honesty, I think it's really important. I think as a kind of an agency head, we wouldn't have got to where we are now if we didn't have allies.
Yeah.
We have allies who are clients, who are really kind of great advocates for the work that we do. We have kind of partnerships with 8 other agencies
Mm-hmm.
who would always are kind of like, you know what, you guys need to get MMC involved. We don't have all the answers, but at least they kind of know where to go to kind of seek the advice.
Yeah.
And so I think we're really fortunate. We've got a strong set of allies who are really kind of waving the flag and really kind of saying, you know what, this needs to be looked at, or we need to kind of get specialist advice to make sure that we are getting the contributions of people of colour involved in whatever it is we're doing, which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate your answer on that one. So moving a bit more into you, I wanted to know what motivates and what inspires you to keep going.
Do you know what it is? Because what we are doing, and I say this, it might sound really cliche, but we're very focused on working on social impact campaigns. And so everything we do has to align with improving people's lives in our community, or kind of reduce inequalities. So everything we do is kind of working towards that.
Yeah.
And just knowing, like I said, it sounds a bit cliche, that you're making a difference, however small it is, that you're making a difference is kind of what motivates me. Because as I said, we can talk about all the negative stuff of things not changing, but when you have to kind of be involved in order to kind of create a change.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, so our involvement, me being involved, and though you're fighting against the red tape, the bureaucracy, and all the kind of challenges that may come your way, it's knowing that actually you're making a difference.
Absolutely.
If it's just kind of to, you know, a small group of people, that's important.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And it is, you know, no matter how small, you're still making a difference, and that is what is important. Forget the cliche, it's just the truth, you know. So what would you say you found most challenging so far in your journey?
Oh goodness, Ebony, what has been most challenging? I think definitely kind of having children and running an agency at the same time has been hugely challenging. My first child, I was in employment then, and so I had 8 months maternity leave. Bliss, lovely. I always say to other people, you know, enjoy being employed. The benefits that come with it. It honestly, and then started having kids. My last 3 I had whilst in the 12 years whilst I've been running the agency. And literally, what is maternity leave?
Gosh.
What is that?
Quite full on. I can only imagine it's full on agency.
What is that? Honestly, my team laugh because the longest I've had is probably 2.5 weeks.
No way.
Maternity leave. I'm being serious, Ebony.
Oh my gosh, that's absolute insanity, Patricia. How are you coping? Is that more a case of? It's your baby, and you won't let go of your baby? Will you say it's a bit of that going on?
I think definitely yes. And you know, it's that kind of thing of like, actually, I'm building something, and you're kind of, you know, it is my baby, and I just want to make sure that it maintain and sustain and it grows. So there was a bit of that. We were much smaller at the time when I was having children. So we were a team of 5.
Right.
And then kind of post-COVID, we've gone up to kind of almost 20. So
wow.
So it's, you know, it was a smaller outfit then. So the pressure was on. But also I think, you know, what's really helped me, my husband, my biggest cheerleader, supporter, and he's executive director, and we've kind of literally kind of done it together. So that's made it easier. But and also we're a remote business, and you know, I started off as a remote business, much to kind of the distaste of lots of other agencies. They'll go, so where are your offices based? We're remote. Almost kind of looking down at you, and then COVID hit. And everybody had to go remote.
Exactly.
Everybody was remote.
Agencies now are remote. There's a lot more agencies that are remote. A lot of people actually prefer remote. So obviously you was onto the right track, okay?
We were onto it. So, you know, but when COVID hit, it was business as usual for us.
Yeah.
Everybody else was trying to figure things out. But it was, and it was done purposefully because, you know, I know my journey as a mother trying to balance work and trying to do work and do lots of other things that I do outside of work. I wanted that flexibility. And I wanted to afford other people that flexibility as well. People who felt that they couldn't go back to work because they had too much caring responsibilities for their parents, or maybe for children, or kind of, you know, they had disabilities or whatever it is. I wanted to kind of give them that flexibility to kind of work in a way that works for them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've done, and it's been brilliant.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I really do. And I love that you and your husband have got that kind of, you know, what is it, dream work, you know, teamwork, dream work. You've got that going.
Teamwork makes it, definitely.
Yeah, love it. I think that's really nice. That's really nice. Okay, so obviously you haven't been an employee for a very long time. You are an employer. So I want to ask you, what to you makes a good working environment, and, you know, what does really good DEI look like? Because, you know, you are an expert in multiculturalism.
Yes. Well, I think it's that kind of creating an environment where everyone feels included.
Mm-hmm.
It's an environment where, like we was talking about, where you can be your authentic self.
Yeah.
It's an environment where you feel is open, where you can express your views and they're heard and they're listened to. Mm. It's an environment where we celebrate one another.
Yeah.
And we do, and we make sure that we kind of do that, you know, whether it's something that somebody's doing outside of work or something that they're doing inside work, we celebrate that. You know, so I think that really kind of goes a long way to people feeling kind of valued and feeling kind of part of something bigger. I'm really fortunate. I've got a fantastic team. I've got a really good team. I'm so proud of my team.
That's amazing.
And they are so passionate about what they do, that, you know, they go above and beyond. And I think that's because of the environment that's been kind of created. You know, I don't ask them to work at weekend, but recently we did a health event, a Black women's health event that was kind of one of my sort of pet projects that I brought to the agency. And I said, look, we really need to kind of address this, and we're not going to wait for a brief from a client before we jump on this. We need to kind of talk about Black women's health because there's too many inequalities that need to be addressed. Right. And so many of them gave up their time outside of work to support that, and showed up. That's so
nice.
Yeah, I had, like, you know, our operational director, she had a wedding that day. She brought her outfit to the event.
Oh, wow. That's dedication.
You can't put a price on that, can you?
You cannot. That's great. That reflection of you as well. That reflects you in the environment you created. So that's brilliant. That's really brilliant. And you should be proud of that. Really. You should be extremely proud. I think that's something. You must have got emotional. I get emotional. It's just like, it's really, it's really, really touching. So as we speak about being proud, we're going to move into your proudest moment. So what would you say has been one of your proudest moments? You know, it can be work or personal. I know obviously children are definitely in there, but, you know, what are your sort of, you know, proudest?
Yeah, definitely children are up there, kind of, you know, they're brilliant. And then on a work front, it's, I think definitely COVID. We were involved in the COVID response, working with the government Cabinet Office number 10 on kind of making sure that we were getting information out to people in a timely fashion. And I think that was definitely one of my proudest moments, being able to kind of run an agile, flexible, responsive team that we were just working day and night. We were running kind of like, I think 50 plus campaigns in less than a year, and doing that really quickly, literally kind of turning campaigns around within a week, 2 weeks, and kind of mobilizing our community ambassadors on the ground within 2 weeks. That was for me kind of, it was it was brilliant. We had kind of like 62 areas across the country with our community ambassadors going out and talking to people face to face and just giving them the right information at the right time. But also the work that we did on adoption, the Black Adoption campaign, that is, honestly, that is just heartwarming.
It really is. It's one of my favourite campaigns of yours. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was definitely kind of a labour of love because, you know, for so long, and I'm sure you've been exposed to it as well, we've seen adverts of kind of Black children in care looking for a home. And I remember looking at those campaigns and just thinking, no, we need to do this differently. So when that opportunity came and we worked on that campaign, it was brilliant because it was on the back of kind of Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd incident that had happened. And actually what we were doing was celebrating the people within the Black community who are adopting children and have adopted children, not making it look like we don't care for our own. We do. We do it all the time. Yeah, exactly. We do it informally. We just don't necessarily we do it informally. We just don't necessarily do it through the kind of the formal procedure.
Yeah. But I like that you made it, simplified the process and made sure you looked at those sort of things, which was important because access is important and people get put off by the access and they think, oh, it's lots of paperwork, it's lots of this and that, and you tackled that. So I thought that was really important in that campaign. So yeah, well done. That was a good one. I was hoping you mentioned that. So yeah, which is good. So what would you say has been a career highlight of yours?
Gosh, the last couple of years, and actually more recently, we've just won the PR Week Award Specialist Agency.
Amazing! Congratulations!
Thank you so much. To win it the first time was brilliant. To win it the second time was like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That was a real kind of proud moment. And it's just that recognition that, you know, the work that we're doing is important. That actually we are kind of at the forefront of really kind of impacting communities in a positive way.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And the so-called hard to reach communities at that.
Exactly that.
So I think that's really good. So what are your thoughts on how you feel like the industry will evolve over the next few years? Because, you know, everyone's talking about AI at the moment and, you know, will it replace everybody? Like, you know, what are your thoughts?
I think, to be honest, to a certain degree, we need to embrace technological advancements. We really do. I mean, like, you know, who could live without their phones now? You know, at the beginning when it came in, it was like, oh, it's just for the buppies and the yuppies. And now, you know, everybody's got a mobile phone. We embraced it, and now we can't live without it. If I leave my phone at home, I'm coming back to get my phone. And that's how I feel about AI. It's a little bit kind of like, it's for some people it's that unknown, but I guess that, you know, we have to embrace it. And actually it can make life a lot easier. I'm feeling the benefit already. It can make life easier. And to everything that's good, there's always kind of the negative thing that can happen with it. But I think we just need to embrace it and utilize it to help us to kind of, for better inform our campaigns, but actually kind of increase engagement and have better outcomes. So anything that can do that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. I feel the same about that, to be honest. What would you say are some key lessons that you've learned throughout your career? Can you give us maybe 3 or something like that?
I think definitely it's really important to be true to who you are. Integrity is really important. And I really kind of, I really hold that. I stand by, let my yes be yes and my no be no. I really kind of hold that. That's really important. So what do I mean by that? There's just certain things that I'm not going to work on. I can't say that we are an agency that's trying to kind of address inequalities and then working on things that are actually kind of compounding the issues with our community. So integrity is really important. Also, I think it's really important to be kind to people. Be nice to people. You know, I hadn't realized that actually throughout my career, the relationships that I have made, even as a kind of a marketing assistant have really kind of helped me now run my own agency.
Yeah.
A lot of the clients that I'm working with now are people that I have worked with who have been ex-colleagues.
Right.
A lot of the people that are working for me now are ex-colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually, if you're not personable, if you're not kind of nice, if you're not kind of, kind to people, you can't build those relationships. And then I think the third one is around kind of making sure that you're building relationships, because the connectivity and being able to collaborate and not kind of just want to hold everything to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got expertise in this area, but actually, bringing other people on board who I know that they're just the best at what they do, and collaborating and kind of co-creating to make a bigger impact is really important. And not being afraid of kind of other people's skills, not feeling like all competition is bad. It's not. It's, if it's for the greater good, then we should see how we can kind of bring skill sets and knowledge and great minds together.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense, absolutely. And I suppose, what advice would you give to young people of colour that are considering entering the industry?
Build resilience. build resilience, because if you don't, you'll kind of give up really quickly. And I've seen people come into this, particularly into the specialist niche area that I work in. I've seen people come in and say, oh yeah, they want to do diversity marketing, they want to do this, they want to do that, and they think that it's going to be a much easier run than it is. But actually, the work that we do is, you have to educate.
Yeah,
it's a journey.
Yeah,
and it may not bear fruits straight away.
Yeah,
and you have to recognize that. And if you're not in it for the long haul, don't even try it.
yeah.
So if your motivation is, I want to make money, this is not it. It's not going to make you quick money. It's a long haul,
It's also purpose driven, so it's going to take a long
it is.
time. No, I was just saying, I agree with you. It takes time to connect and try to persuade and get people to understand the subject and to change hearts and minds. Like you say, that's a journey in itself. Particularly from for those who've not always been engaged with in the past. So, yeah, I get it.
That's it. And it's winning the hearts and minds of your clients. It's winning the hearts and minds of kind of other agencies that are kind of out there. It's winning the hearts and minds of, like, your communities that you're trying to reach. Yeah. And so that can feel really daunting when people start on this journey. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are sort of gone, oh no, you know what, I'm just going to go into mainstream and do something else. And I get that. Yeah. But I think that's why it's so important to have that resilience and have that, you need to know why you're in it.
Yeah.
You need to, that has to center you, because that's what's going to keep you going.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, thank you for those. That were really good. So where do you go for things like industry or / peer support? So, for example, I'm a member of the UK Black Comms Network. I've also been a member of CIPR and things like that. So are there like networks that you connect to in particular?
Limited, if I'm really honest. And I think that's a lot to do with my time.
Yeah.
Building business, home life, and things that I do outside of work as well. I've not had the time to do that, but I do have mentors outside of the comms sector, which actually I find quite beneficial to talk to people who work in comms, because they can just kind of give you a different perspective, which actually can be quite challenging, but really helpful. And so actually I've got kind of mentors that sit out of comms, and I have regular conversations with them, not even just around running a business, kind of managing your employees, kind of, how to kind of continue to stay true to yourself in kind of business decisions, all of that. And so I've got that network of people that I can go to. And I can do this. I couldn't do it without them, to be honest.
Yeah. You need some sort of sounding board at some point, don't you? So that's really good. Definitely. And for anybody out there who's interested, PRCA have a resource which is PRISM, which is the Public Relations, Inclusion, Support and Mentoring. So you can go and get mentoring from them. It's brought to you by the RCA's Race, Ethnicity and Equity Board. So essentially you can access free structured mentoring available for all sectors globally. And it is created to provide meaningful support to Black, Asian, and ethnically diverse professionals. So if you're interested, get in touch. But thank you for that, Patricia, because I feel like having a mentor is very, very important. And if you can have a few, whether they're in the industry or out, I think that's really, really important, just to sound check. Because sometimes, you know, it can be a lot if whether you're running your own organization, being an independent consultant or working for somebody, you know, sound checking is always good. So I want to get a little bit into mindset. And we're coming towards the end of this now anyway. So how do you deal with the internal mind war? So how do you kind of manage self-limiting beliefs?
That's really, really interesting. So let me take you back to where you started from about bringing your authentic self to work. And I really do. So I don't separate. I'm a person of faith. Yeah. I don't separate my faith from my work. So that's my whole me, and that's what governs how I make decisions. And so that's been really helpful in terms for me using my faith to be able to deal with thoughts, negative thoughts, self-limiting thoughts, and able to really intentionally choose to think positive, even when positive things aren't happening. Yeah. And so I use those principles that I've learned, and they're biblical principles, and I'm proud of that. And I don't shy away from telling people that. So I use biblical principles to help me to know how to keep my mind sane and balanced. And it really works for me. And so I've got those strategies that I use. And, you know, sometimes you slip away. You know, sometimes you go, you know, you have those days where you don't feel so great, or something happens that kind of feels like, oh, you feel a little bit blindsided. But kind of bringing myself back to kind of, you know, Patricia, you know what you need to do with that. You know the strategy that you've developed for that, and that's what I use to kind of guide as a guiding principle. And it's really around focusing on positive things. You know, there are a lot of negative things, but actually choose to think about those things that are positive, choose to think about those things that are good, and choose to see the best in people rather than the worst. And that kind of helps me as my guiding principle.
That's good. I like that. I do like that. And I get you on you know, the fact that a lot of our thoughts are majority negative. So you have to be intentional, you know. So I think that's really, really important. Now, looking back over your journey, would you do it all over again?
100%.
Lovely.
100%. It's been the making of me. If I look at myself like 20 years ago, where I was like, you know, kind of a junior person, feeling kind of quite intimidated by kind of senior people and being in environments where I just felt like, oh gosh, I'm not good enough to be here. But I was there and I stuck at it, and I've kind of gone through, you know, all the kind of the challenges and the development and everything else. It's made me the person I am today. So yeah, absolutely would do it. I've, you know, all the challenges that I've faced in the workplace and outside of the workplace have been beneficial. So even at my worst, they've been great because they've brought out the best in me. So I think, yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, I always kind of look at challenges in a positive way, that, you know what, whatever happens, this has got to turn around. It's got to work for me, and I will make it work for me, and I'll be better at the end of it. I'll be better as a result of it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, that's really lovely. So, what has been your best and worst advice you've been given? Now, sometimes it can be funny because some of the worst advice has been hilarious from people. But can you think of any? Just one that's you thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible advice, and one that's been like, oh, this has really helped me throughout my career.
Gosh, that's really difficult. Worst advice. I think, let me just think. I can't think anybody's really given me really bad advice.
That's a good thing.
Actually, no, I think Yeah, well, actually, thinking about it now, when someone has said to me, "Don't ever set up your own agency,"
Oh my gosh. Yeah, definitely bad advice. Look how well you
that
do.
was bad advice. And I
Yeah.
think, sometimes people are going through stuff, really
Yeah.
difficult times and challenges, and they speak from that place
Yeah.
of what they've experienced. And I think I get it because of what they were going through, and it kind of all just when it didn't end well.
Mm.
But I remember hearing that, and I thought, no, that's not going to be my story. So,
Yeah, and look how different your agency is anyway. You went remote, you started off completely different. So,
yeah,
you had a different vision in mind.
I did get some advice of like, no, don't do it. Just go and go and do something. Just
Yeah.
freelance. Just do that.
Okay.
Okay, no, that's not going to be me.
Okay.
And the best advice that I've ever got was definitely actually from my husband, who kind of said to me, "You can do this. Just you can do this." And he had so much belief in my ability that
Yeah.
he literally kind of pushed me, kicking and screaming, to like set up my own business. And he's like, "You can do this. You
I
can."
love that.
Okay.
That's
I was
lovely.
like, okay, well, if you believe in me, then there must be something. And I think we all need someone who that believes in us and that
Yeah.
can encourage us and kind of push us to do more than what we think we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true. And thank you for sharing that. So that's very sweet. I like that. And my last question is, do you have any rules that you've implemented to help you along your career journey?
Oh gosh, rules. Number one, I have got a kind of a guiding principle. I think some of the my team know this. I don't engage in debates around kind of multiculturalism and stuff like that. That's just I don't want to go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
And so where I see there there is a debate going on around whether this should happen or that should happen. Because I've been in it for so long, I've noticed that actually, and I've observed a pattern that it doesn't lead to much.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're trying to win hearts and minds of clients, being in that mode of debate, argumentative, being in that approach doesn't work well. Doesn't bring them along the journey. So even though, I know there's a lot of frustration in the industry, it's knowing how to channel that frustration in a positive way so that people feel more open to kind of say, yeah, actually, we do need to tackle this. And actually, we want you to help us to do that. That's been my guiding rule. So you will never find me in a platform kind of debating the case. Or kind of, I can make a point. I can kind of, deliver persuasive arguments about why we do it, but I just don't get into debates and arguments around it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's great. Okay, well, I think that's a good piece of advice anyway. So I really appreciate it. And that concludes our interview. So thank you so much, Patricia, for taking time out to share your journey with me. I've really enjoyed our chat. It's been really lovely to have you. Now, for those who are listening and maybe want to reach out, connect with you, where can they find you?
Oh gosh, well, I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm all over there, Patricia Macauley, on LinkedIn, but also on website. You can contact us, which is mmc-uk.co.uk.
Perfect, great. Thank you so much. So thank you. That has been a lovely chat with the lovely Patricia about her journey. And if you want to find out more, do get in touch. So thank you, everybody, for staying tuned. I will be back very soon with some more wonderful people from the world of comms. Until then, stay blessed and stay tuned. Thank you. Thank you so much.